Kid's a wizard because everything he created on the Knight Rider is now true. The cars talk, the cars park themselves, the cars will drive themselves. They can do anything you want them to do, and probably, in the next 10 years, you're going to be able to go outside.
The Knight Rider cars cost only $1 each. But there was a strange rule. Every car had to be destroyed after the show ended. Nobody knew why, except Hasselhoff. Meanwhile, he was also fighting personal demons. His addiction started during these years. It got so bad, his own daughter later filmed him drunk on the floor. The show looked perfect on TV, but was falling apart backstage. For 40 years, Hasselhoff kept these secrets. Now he's finally telling the whole sad story. David Hasselhoff was born on July 17, 1952, in Baltimore, Maryland. His family was Roman Catholic. Strict but loving. His father, Joseph, was a business executive. His mother, Dolores, stayed home and raised the kids. David was the only boy with 4 sisters. His roots were German. His great-great-grandmother came from a town near Bremen in 1865. That German connection would mean nothing to him as a kid, but years later, it would turn him into a national hero overseas. His childhood was anything but stable. The family moved constantly because of his father's job would bring security. First Baltimore, then Jacksonville, Florida, then Atlanta, then Illinois. David never stayed long enough to feel settled. He was shy, always a new kid, always adjusting. But every time he had to start over, he got better at talking to people. He learned how to fit in, how to perform. It's likely what made him want to become an actor. On stage, he could finally be someone that stayed in one place. That moment came when he was just 7. He was cast in a local production of Peter Pan, playing a crew member on Captain Hook's ship. The shy boy lit up on stage. He wasn't nervous. He was free. That one role changed everything. He fell in love with theater. From that point on, he took acting, singing, and dancing lessons. He told everyone his only dream was Broadway. And decades later, he did return to Peter Pan, this time as Captain Hook himself in theaters across the UK from 2010 to 2017. When the family finally settled in LaGrange, Illinois, David was a teenager. He attended Lyons Township High School and threw himself into everything. He wasn't just another student. He led the choir, captained the volleyball team, competed on the speech team, and starred in school plays. He even played the lead in the Fantastics. By the time he graduated in 1970, he had already built a toolkit most actors spend years chasing: confidence, charisma, physicality, and presence. After high school, he tried Oakland University in Michigan, but soon he transferred to the California Institute of the Arts, a school Walt Disney had founded in 1961. That move brought him to California, right where he needed to be. At CalArts, he learned how to control his voice, command the stage, and cross between music, acting, and dance. Within 2 years of graduation, he got his first big break. That break came in the most unexpected way. In 1974, desperate to get his Screen Actors Guild card, he agreed to star in a low-budget movie called Revenge of the Cheerleaders. His character's name? Boner. He thought nobody would see it. But the film was released 2 years later with the alternate title caught with their pants down. It was embarrassing, but it got him his SAG card. He was officially a working actor. Then came the soap opera. In 1975, he landed the role of Dr. William Snapper Foster Jr. on The Young and the Restless. He stayed on the show for 6 years, filming over 850 episodes. His character was serious, responsible, the man of the family. Fans loved him. And when he decided to leave in 1982, the show's creator didn't just write him out. He phased out the entire Foster family. That's how big he had become. The real game changer came later that year. NBC President Brandon Tartikoff personally chose him to star in Knight Rider. Tartikoff saw something others didn't, a mix of kindness and strength. The show, which paired David with a talking car named Kit, became a worldwide sensation. It wasn't just action. It was about saving lives, not taking them. And that image of the clean-cut, tech-savvy hero stuck. It made David a star in America, and soon after, a legend in Germany. But before Knight Rider, there was a strange detour. In 1979, he starred in Star Crash, an Italian sci-fi B-movie trying to cash in on Star Wars. David played a prince in glowing armor who delivers lines like, "3 minutes are enough. Father, it was ridiculous, but he gave it his all." The movie flopped, but it showed he was willing to take risks. David Hasselhoff wasn't just acting in Knight Rider, he was living it. But long before he climbed into Kit's driver's seat, one man had a crazy idea. Glenn A. Larson wanted to mix a cowboy story with a high-tech car. He said Michael Knight was like the Lone Ranger, only instead of a horse, he had a talking Trans Am. NBC loved the idea. Their president, Brandon Tartikoff, had complained there weren't enough good male actors. So Larson said, what if the car was a star? The show hit TV on September 26, 1982, and ran until April 4th. It was backed by FLAG, the Foundation for Law and Government, a fake agency that sent Knight on secret missions. Larson had already made big shows like Magnum P.I. and Battlestar Galactica, but Knight Rider became one of his greatest hits. The timing was perfect. The car-obsessed 80s crowd couldn't get enough of it, but behind the scenes, building Kit wasn't easy. Pontiac's 1982 Trans Ams were hard to get. At first, the team only had one. Designer Michael Sheff made it into the first kit, and then they got lucky. A train crash destroyed a shipment of brand-new Trans Ams. GM couldn't sell them, so they gave 10 of them to the show for just $1 each. The catch? Every car had to be destroyed after filming ended. Fans still call that sacrilege. Each kit was upgraded to fit a different role. Some were built just for stunts, with fiberglass bodies for light jumps. Some had hidden drivers in the back seat. The hero car was only used for close-ups and shots with Hasselhoff. Every car cost about $18,000 to modify. By season 3, they gave Kit a makeover, spoilers, wings, and a scoop to stand out from the thousands of fan-made replicas that started popping up on screen. Kit was a marvel. It had a shell that could survive bullets, explosions, and even 800 degrees heat. It could jump 40 feet in the air with turbo boost and accelerate from 0 to 60 in just 0.2 seconds. The red scanner light on the hood, called the anamorphic equalizer, was its eye, inspired by HAL from 2001, A Space Odyssey. It could see in X-ray, monitor Michael's vital signs, and even go into silent mode for stealth. And years later, real car makers caught up. Ford added heart monitoring seats. Collision avoidance systems became standard in European trucks by 2015. But back then, it felt like science fiction. Kit was said to be worth $11.4 million. In reality, each build cost closer to $100,000. But none of that mattered to fans. Kids wanted the toys. Teens wanted the car. Parents wanted to watch with their kids. Critics didn't care for it. TV Guide gave it 21%. Rotten Tomatoes, 35%. But audiences made it a hit anyway. By 1983, Kit toys were the top Christmas gift. It didn't matter what the reviews said. Knight Rider became a cultural earthquake. When the show ended in 1986, it felt sudden, but the legend never really stopped. It aired in dozens of countries. It was dubbed, rerun, and adored. NBC tried to bring it back in 2008, but it flopped. They missed what made the original special, and no one felt that more than Hasselhoff. For him, Knight Rider wasn't just another gig. He said he'd spend the rest of his life inside that show if he could. Fans often came up to him and said, "You helped me through a hard time." That meant more to him than all the fame from Baywatch. Because Knight Rider, he said, was about saving lives, about giving people hope. He called it the role he was proudest of. David Hasselhoff might have looked like the perfect action hero on screen, but behind the wheel of Knight Rider, things were far from smooth. What the audience never saw was how complicated, dangerous, and at times heartbreaking the show really was behind the scenes. It all started with the cars. Knight Rider didn't just use one kit. It used 4. There was a hero car, fully loaded with blinking lights, voice panels, and a polished look for close-ups. Then came the stunt cars, made to handle wild turns and chase scenes, even if their insides were mostly stripped out. Next were the jump cars, built with fiberglass bodies and lightweight parts to survive massive airborne stunts. And finally, the shells, hollow wrecks made just a crash. To pull off the magic trick of Kit driving on its own, stunt coordinator Jack Gill would lie flat inside the passenger footwell, completely out of sight, steering while on his back. Pontiac only gave them 3 Trans Ams at first, but everything changed in 1983 when a train full of Trans Ams derailed. GM sold 10 of them to the show for $1 each. The catch? Every single one had to be destroyed after filming, and they were by wrecking ball. The stunts weren't just flashy, they were brutal. In one of the most famous jumps ever filmed, the car flew over an 85-foot ravine in Thousand Oaks, California. The jump was so rough that the license plate ripped off midair. A mounted camera broke loose. Even Hasselhoff's leather jacket flew off. That single shot was reused in 5 later episodes. The cars didn't survive, and neither did some of the stunt gear. Jack Gill paid for those scenes with his body. He broke his back twice, broke his neck once. Today he walks with titanium plate in his neck, held by 6 screws. During one stunt, he had to back Kit out of a moving semi at 50 miles per hour, with only 3 inches of clearance between the mirrors. Once the rear wheels hit the road, he had to shift into drive, lock the wheels, whip a 180 and roar off. There were no padded walls, no CGI, just real concrete, real risk, and real pain. Gill also trained Hasselhoff. They practiced for weeks at Saugus Speedway. Tight turns, full spins, fishtails, and sharp cornering. After just a few episodes, Hasselhoff was driving like a pro. Fast entrances, fast exits, sliding into frame. He couldn't do the jump scene for safety, but he did just about everything else. Still, there was tension, especially when it came to who got to drive a hero car. Gill had rigged the system to stay hidden inside and control Kit for self-driving scenes. But once Hasselhoff jumped in, fights broke out. "I've got the wheel!" Hasselhoff would yell. "No, I'm driving, you hack." Gill would shoot back from inside the seat. Gill joked. The best part was I could hit him from in there any time I wanted. That wasn't the only battle on set. Hasselhoff had another rival, William Daniels, the voice of Kit. But the two never even met during filming. Daniels recorded his lines in a studio long after scenes were shot. Still, fans started loving Kit more than Michael Knight. Hasselhoff noticed. He pushed NBC to give him more lines. He even used his contract to rewrite scripts. Daniels, meanwhile, began treating Kit more seriously, protecting the character like it was his own. Eventually, they met awkwardly at the Christmas party. Off camera, Hasselhoff was struggling. His drinking started to affect the show. Crew members said filming stalled at least 7 times during season 3 due to his exhaustion, a code word for hangovers. During the major 1984 episode Goliath Returns, producers had to work around his slow recovery in the mornings. Years later, his ex-wife would say he was already drinking heavily back then. And in 2007, the world saw it for themselves when his daughter recorded him drunk, shirtless, slurring, trying to eat a burger on the floor. The man who told the world one man can make a difference couldn't even get through lunch. And then came the emotional weight. In 1983, a 15-year-old leukemia patient named Randy visited the set. After Randy died, Hasselhoff received a letter from his parents. It shook him. He started to believe that playing Michael Knight wasn't just a job. It was a calling. He started pushing NBC for deeper stories, less about explosions and more about values. But the pressure to live up to that perfect image crushed him. He later said it nearly killed him. "It took God's angels," he said, "to bring me to the brink of disaster and death to get my attention." After Knight Rider ended in 1986, David Hasselhoff ran straight into a wall. Not a physical one, but the kind that crushes most actors after they play an iconic role. Everyone knew him as Michael Knight, the guy who talked to a car. Hollywood wasn't interested in seeing him do anything else. He tried movies, but they flopped. Between 1986 and 1989, his career in America was stuck. People laughed when he brought up serious roles. Even Hasselhoff later joked that he was known more for chatting with Kit than acting. That slump pushed him to look somewhere most American stars ignored, Germany. And that's where he struck gold. In 1988, he released a song called Looking for Freedom. It was an English cover of a German hit, but its message hit a nerve. East and West Germany were still divided, and people were desperate for something hopeful. The song exploded. It stayed at #1 in West Germany for 8 straight weeks and spent 25 weeks on the charts. It sold over 500,000 copies and went platinum. By 1989, Hasselhoff wasn't just a star in Germany. He was a symbol of hope. That same year, he performed on top of the Berlin Wall on New Year's Eve in front of 500,000 people, wearing a flashing leather jacket and scarf, dodging fireworks, and singing his freedom anthem like it was a call to arms. But back in the United States, he was still losing ground. That's when Baywatch came along. The show aired in 1989 and failed miserably. It ranked 73rd out of 103 shows. NBC pulled the plug, and the production company collapsed. Most actors would have walked away. Not Hasselhoff. In 1991, he gambled everything. He put up his own money, joined forces with the creators, and bought the rights. He became not just a star, but the executive producer. More importantly, he negotiated a cut of future profits. That deal would make him a fortune, and it paid off beyond anyone's imagination. At its peak in 1996, Baywatch was seen by more than 1.1 billion people each week. That's 1 out of every 5 humans on Earth at the time. The show aired in 148 countries, translated into 44 languages, and brought in more than $1 billion in syndication revenue. Even the audience stats were surprising. 65% of viewers were women, many drawn to the show's mix of action, romance, and strong female characters. Hasselhoff's character, Mitch Buchanan, became a cultural icon. The red shorts, the rescue buoy, the slow-motion runs, they all became part of pop history. From 1989 to 2001, Hasselhoff appeared in 220 episodes. When he left before the final season, they didn't kill him off. They just made his character disappear in an underwater explosion, leaving the door open. He came back in 2003 for Baywatch Hawaiian Wedding, playing a resurrected Mitch with amnesia. Even when he tried to parody the character in later years, he couldn't shake the shadow of the red shorts. But behind the scenes, Hasselhoff was building an empire. He was earning $100,000 per episode during the show's prime, but the real money came from the royalties. He was reportedly pulling in $4 million a year long after the show ended. He spun the franchise into movies and a spin-off series called Baywatch Nights, which started as a detective show and then bizarrely shifted into supernatural stories to ride the wave of the X-Files. Even after divorce settlements cut his fortune from $100 million to around $10 million, Baywatch kept making him money. In 2018, the show was remastered in HD, opening up fresh streams of revenue. The brand refused to die. And while all this was happening in America, Hasselhoff was still a pop star in Europe. Between the 80s and late 90s, he released 15 studio albums and 12 compilations. He toured constantly, making appearances on German TV, performing in arenas, and crisscrossing Atlantic to balance his 2 lives. TV icon in the United States, music sensation in Europe. In 1990 alone, he went on a freedom tour across Germany and Switzerland while still starring in Baywatch and handling production duties. In 1995, he released 4 compilation albums. His work schedule was insane, but it kept his brand alive in both worlds. In early 2002, David Hasselhoff nearly drank himself to death. His body was falling apart when he checked into the Betty Ford Center in California. Later in 2011, he made a chilling confession. He said his blood alcohol level was the highest ever recorded at the clinic. Doctors told him he should have been dead. He wasn't exaggerating. They had never seen anyone survive such levels. Hasselhoff said it wasn't for fame or attention. He wasn't playing the old Hollywood game of check into rehab to save your image. He went because he had no choice. His body was breaking down. Fame, pressure, and years of heavy drinking had finally caught up to him. But this wasn't the beginning of his downfall. Back in 2001, he tried to get help. He entered rehab, stayed 8 days, then ordered a taxi and escaped. He didn't go home. He went drinking. That night ended with him unconscious in a hospital bed. That was his first real wake-up call. He checked himself back into rehab soon after and publicly admitted he had a problem. But addiction doesn't go away that easily. Then came May 3rd, 2007. His 16-year-old daughter, Taylor N., recorded something that would haunt him forever. Lying shirtless on the floor of a Las Vegas hotel room, Hasselhoff was so drunk he could barely eat a cheeseburger. The video was heartbreaking, not because of how he looked, but because of what his daughter said. You could hear her pleading, "You promised me you're not going to get alcohol tonight." She wasn't being cruel. She was desperate. She later said she filmed it to show him what he was like when drunk because he never remembered. Over 1 billion people eventually saw that video. It became one of the first viral moments of the internet. And for many, it was the first time they saw how far he'd fallen. That same year, things got worse. In July 20th, 2006, during his ugly divorce from Pamela Bach, Hasselhoff caused a scene at Heathrow Airport. He was supposed to board a flight to Los Angeles, but he never made it. Witnesses said he was swaying, smelled like booze, and couldn't stand straight. Airline staff refused to let him fly. He told them he was upset about the divorce. His publicist blamed antibiotics and said he chose to take a later flight, but the damage was done. His divorce was finalized that very day in Los Angeles, and now the whole world was watching. The divorce didn't just end in court. It spilled out into the headlines. In August 20th, 2006, court documents that were meant to stay private were accidentally released. The details were explosive. Hasselhoff accused Bach of using cocaine. Bach accused him of abuse and cheating. It was ugly, and it made everything worse. The public wasn't just seeing him as a struggling celebrity. They were seeing the worst parts of his life play out like a soap opera. The divorce also turned into a bitter custody fight. At first, each parent got one daughter. Taylor stayed with her dad, and Haley stayed with her mom. That didn't last. Pamela Bach filed for a restraining order, claiming Hasselhoff had been violent. The court denied it, but told them to stay away from each other. A few months later, the court gave Hasselhoff full custody of both daughters. Years later, he used this fact to argue for lower alimony payments, which dropped from $21,000 to $10,000 a month. Despite all the pain, Hasselhoff started finding clarity. By 2010, something had changed. He stopped hiding from his past and began laughing at it. During his Comedy Central roast, he even joked about the infamous burger video. He told interviewers the roast was therapeutic. He wasn't proud of his past, but he was finally strong enough to talk about it. He said it took God's angels to bring him to the edge of death just to make him stop. The spiritual awakening helped him face the truth. He had nearly destroyed himself. He also tried to rebuild his love life. His first marriage to Catherine Hicklin had lasted 5 years from 1984 to 1989. Their wedding had even been recreated in an episode of Knight Rider. Months after that divorce, he met Pamela Bach. She'd appeared in an episode of the show, but nothing happened then. They later reconnected at a nightclub and got married in 1989. They had 2 daughters, Taylor in 1990 and Haley in 1992. After 16 years, the marriage ended in chaos. Hasselhoff didn't date publicly for a while, but in 2011 he started seeing Haley Roberts, a Welsh woman he met while filming Britain's Got Talent. They dated for 7 years and got married in 2018 in Italy. They honeymooned in the Maldives. But just when things seemed calm, another tragedy hit. On March 5th, 2025, Pamela Bach was found dead at age 62. Reports confirmed she died by suicide. Police were called after family members couldn't reach her. The news shocked Hollywood. Hasselhoff released a short statement asking for privacy. The couple had gone through one of the most toxic divorces in celebrity history, but her death reopened old wounds. Their daughters, now in their 30s, were left to deal with the heartbreak. In January 20th, 21, David Hasselhoff said something that changed how fans saw Knight Rider. For almost 40 years, the show was sold as a sci-fi adventure about a high-tech talking car. But Hasselhoff didn't see it that way. It's not about a talking car, he said. It's about the relationship between Michael and Kit, and it's also about the action, and one man can make a difference. That one comment flipped everything. The original marketing focused on the cool gadgets, self-driving mode, turbo boost, the bulletproof shell. But to Hasselhoff, the emotional bond was always the real story. When he spoke to Kelly Clarkson in June 20th, 21, he doubled down. After 40 years, everything is exactly what we came up with back in the day, he said. The cars talk. The cars drive themselves. They park. He wasn't impressed by the tech anymore. To him, that was old news. What mattered was a connection between man and machine. That shift from machine to meaning was something the fans had missed. But Hasselhoff never did. Behind the scenes, he also admitted something surprising. The show wasn't really about acting, at least not for him. In 2021, he revealed that he leaned more on his driving skills than his acting. I got really good at driving because I wanted to. He said, the reverse 180? I could teach you that in 5 minutes. Back then there was no CGI. Everything was real, dangerous. We did everything by the seam of our pants. He said his favorite trick, spraying WD-40 on the tires, spinning out and roaring through scenes without a second take. They'd yell, "Action, Knight Rider," and I'd just go, "Woohoo." He laughed. You got paid for that. Can you believe it? That raw excitement helped mask what he felt were weaker acting moments. But it worked. Fans remember the speed, the screeches, the stunts, and Hasselhoff made sure it looked fun, because it was. But the fun didn't last forever. Since 2013, Hasselhoff had been fighting to bring Knight Rider back. He had the rights for about 10 years, but nothing moved. I couldn't get a bite, he said. That changed when screenwriter T.J. Fixman, a major Knight Rider fan, joined the effort. By early 2021, Hasselhoff said he had an emotional stake in the reboot. Whether I'm in it or not, I don't know, he admitted. The confusion didn't stop there. Directors like James Wan and even James Gunn talked about taking on the project. Gunn later tweeted that he and Hasselhoff had many talks about continuing the series in a modern setting, but the timing was never right. Years passed. By May 20th, 25, the reboot was still in development hell. Hasselhoff was still waiting, still hoping. But he made one thing clear. If it ever came back, it had to feel like the original. Not just the action, not just the car, but the heart, the friendship, the idea that one man and one machine could actually make a difference.